Hello everyone and welcome to the next free podcast coming from figuredrawingonline.com, and this one is the counterpart or the cut down version, a free version of the main lecture that's been posted on figuredrawingonline.com. The lecture is on the shoulder girdle. The shoulder girdle essentially, I will mention in this free podcast only the basics. For if you want the full lowdown and the full range of examples and the images to draw from, you will need to go to buy the lecture. But in this cut down version, just very basics. The shoulder girdle consists primarily from the scapula at the back and the clavicle in the front. Partly these two systems are assisted by the humerus bone, which is the bone of the upper arm. It is important to know that the shoulder girdle is a kind of a floating system that sits on top of the rib cage, and therefore it allows for a lot of expression. Once you learn how it operates, how it functions, the mechanics of it, the muscles and the bones, the clues, you can put in extraordinary amount of expressive data in your drawing, and it will make it so much nicer. So I'm going to just quickly draw in the back view. I'll put in the 7th cervical vertebrae, which is an extraordinarily useful landmark to know, and just do a quick sketch of the body in a view from the back. And so in a resting kind of a position, the scapula has kind of just hangs there in the back. It's fairly easy to remember the shape of it because it has a it looks like two triangles joined. So that's the bottom triangle, that's the top triangle, and if you kind of just follow that, you get the scapula. Now it has a kind of a spine-like shape that comes all the way up here, and it is what creates a connection point between the clavicle and the front. This is where the clavicle comes. That's why usually and most often you just have a little bump there on the top of the shoulder. That's this bony bit protruding where it meets the clavicle coming from the front. Now the scapula has this little dimple here, and that is where actually the humerus bone, the bone of the upper arm, is inserted. And this is going to be very, very schematic and fast. But in terms of functionality, it follows what we said about the pelvis and the femur, the bone of the upper leg. The cavity on the side of the scapula is much smaller with the upper arm than it is with the rib cage and the upper leg, and that is to allow much more flexibility in movement. So the hand can go forward, backward, up and down. It can really go all the way because of the shallowness of this housing bit. Now in terms of the clavicle pretty much looking from the front is just a straight line, and there's not much to know about it. But once you look from the top, as if a figure is bent towards you, forward, then it instantly gains this kind of S-like shape, which is good to remember when the body is in perspective. All right, so the main muscles that we have are the rhomboideus, which are attached to this spine on the side, and then on this edge of the scapula on either side, and then they're attached to the spine in the middle. Their function is to pull the scapula together, which means if the scapula usually just follows the arm. So if both arms are thrust forward, these two muscles are the major agent in pulling the scapula back and pulling the arms back. There's other muscles that are involved, but in terms of scapula, these muscles, the rhomboideus here, its job is to pull the shoulder blades back together. On the top triangle of the shoulder blade has a muscle which is called levator scapulae. It's attached to the first four cervical vertebrae, and its function is to elevate or to lift the shoulder blades. The body of the shoulder blade itself has three muscles that we can mention. The first one is infraspinatus, which is about such in shape. It's attached here on the humerus bone, and its function is to rotate the hand laterally, so outwards. Just underneath is teres minor, which is attached to very same position, very similar position, similar function. And underneath that we have a teres major, which goes on the other side, is inserted other side of the humerus, which means if these two muscles are pulling it or rotating it outwards laterally, teres major will rotate it medially, going backwards. I will quickly draw the picture on the left to demonstrate what we were talking about, the rhomboideus in action. And this is going to be just a very fast sketch. That's the 7th cervical vertebrae. Now what happens here is, what happens on the left is that the large muscles, and of course all this is covered in the back by trapezius, which originates at the bottom of the skull. So these large muscle structures are kind of pressing on each other because there's nowhere to go, and the rhomboideus is performing its function. It's pulling the shoulder blades back, and there's nowhere to go. So you get all those really big muscly bulging there, which is very expressive. Then the deltoides, which sits just on the top of the arm, kind of bulges there. It's got nowhere to go either. It's all truncated then. And then of course we have the triceps at the back here, the two heads of the triceps, and it's getting a little bit out of shape there. And then of course we have the muscles that we mentioned here, the infraspinatus there, roughly there, and the teres major, maybe like such. So and underneath all this we have the rhomboideus. So if we were, and of course underneath is the latissimus dorsi coming down and forming this bit down here, with external obliques on the front. So if we were to just quickly throw some light on it coming from there, I mean using the traditional light of just one dominant light source and one reflected light, then all of this would pretty much be, all of this would be in shade, and you would get all these very nice kind of modeling qualities that, you know, all the great masters had an intimate knowledge of how this stuff works. So they could just really put in some quick shading, or just throw a little bit of light on all of this to get that plasticity, that expression that is so important. So that would be. So that's just a quick lowdown on the shoulder girdle. There's of course more to it, and we have the side view. We haven't spoken about the armpit, how that works, how it's created, or the front, how the pectoralis major works with the clavicle. But all that is of course discussed at length at the the lecture that you can find at www.figuredrawingonline.com if you buy it. This is just a cut down version for the podcasts. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and the next one will be on the upper arm. Thanks a lot. See you then.